So we'll give it a couple of moments to let our participants join us here. I see they're starting joining us, so stand by, folks. We're just letting a few more participants join our webinar today. They're coming in fast and furious, so that's good. So one thing I'll say just from the beginning is that this presentation will be recorded. You'll receive a copy of the recording as well as a copy of the presentation that I'm going to go through today. Today's presentation is how to market to government agencies. So I think it's a really important topic, and it's going to take a different slant than I think a lot of people think when they think about marketing. I think they think about just basically how do you sell, but there's a lot more to marketing than just selling. So this is what we're going to be talking about today. First, a little bit about who we are. Apex Accelerators. We're formerly PTACs, Procurement Technical Assistance Centers, but we're administered by the Monterey County Business Council, but we're funded through the Department of Defense, and that's been going on since 1985. There are 96 Apex Accelerators across the United States and U.S. territories, and there's 7 within the state of California. The mission of all Apex Accelerators is to promote economic growth and employment opportunities in the local markets that they serve. And we do that by facilitating your access to the government marketplace at the federal, state, and at the local level. I mentioned that there were 7 Apex Accelerators in California. So you see just this color chart of who they are. We're this teal area in the middle here, Central Coast, Central Valley area. If you're from one of these other areas, you can either reach out to us or just go to aptac.us.org, and you can actually find the Apex Accelerator that serves your county. A little bit about the services we all provide. Basically, the core function of us is one-on-one counseling, working with you, learning what your business has done in the past, what you're doing now, and then your goals for government contracting. And some of that is going to be then pre-award assistance. We'll teach you how to find opportunities, how to review the notices of the opportunities. Talk a little bit about capability statements, which is an important tool that's used especially in the federal and in the state marketplace. And it's a good way just to promote your company. Post-award assistance. So conflicts will arise. We'll kind of talk you through how to maybe deal with some of those. Talked about what are called debriefs, protests, and how you can leverage those to be more successful in your selling to the government. We participate in outreach events throughout the Central Coast, Central Valley area, talking to people about who we are, what we do. Typically, if we're there, not only are we telling people about the services we provide, but oftentimes, like this next bullet point, and we're doing today, we'll be doing some live training there. And then, of course, these webinars that we did. We started the webinars during COVID, and we found that it's just a great way for us to reach more people just due to the large size of our service area. So we'll continue to do that. Saying that too, I mean, if there are topics that you would like to see us cover, just don't hesitate to reach out to us. And then we can put together a presentation on a specific topic, or it could be one that, since you're new to us, that we do on a regular basis, but that maybe we can even do a one-on-one with you with some of these webinars. Bid matching is a service that we provide to you. Basically what it is we use a third-party vendor. We create a profile with you of your business, upload the information into their system. Their system then will go out and search literally thousands of government websites where contracting opportunities are posted. Any matches to your profile, and those opportunities then are emailed directly to you. So it saves you all the time of having to go to these different websites on your own. And oftentimes too, I mean, you'll see opportunities with agencies that maybe you've never considered marketing your services to. And then we help navigate certification programs. There's a lot of them out there. First and foremost, we kind of talk to you about whether it even makes sense for you to get certified. There's nuances with certification programs, but then we kind of walk you through the qualifications that they're looking for, supporting documents that you have to provide, etc. And then this last part is really important. There's no fees or commitment to you. We're your tax dollars at work. So we lobby every year. I don't say we lobby, but we ask Congress members to fund us year after year. And again, since the mid 80s, the Apex program has been around. With that, I'd like to introduce to you Sharon Mikesell, who is a strategic partner of ours, who is program manager of the Cal Coastal Small Business Development Center.
Great. Thank you so much, Victor. Like Victor mentioned, I am Sharon Mikesell. I'm the program manager at Cal Coastal SBDC, also this Cal Coastal Small Business Development Center. And we're one of about 1,000 SBD centers nationwide. We're part of the Central California SBDC network. Cal Coastal SBDC provides small businesses in Monterey and San Benito counties with one-on-one, no-fee business advising, training, and access to comprehensive resources and information to help your business start, grow, and succeed. And this is overall business practices. We provide financial education, business plan guidance, marketing tips that can help your business get started. And it also helps you get started with government contracts of all sizes. And we find that many of our clients get started in government contracting as subcontractors or with contracts with cities, counties, and special districts. And our services, of course, complement the Apex Accelerator services. So we recommend that you sign up for services from both of our organizations, especially since Victor mentioned earlier, there's no cost to you. And why is there no cost to you from our agency? Well, we have the support of partners that include the U.S. Small Business Administration, the California Office of the Small Business Advocate, local partners that include the Monterey County Business Council and the Monterey County Workforce Development Board, the City of Salinas, and of course, our host and small business lender, Cal Coastal's Rural Development Corporation. So if you're not already our client, please visit our website at calcoastalsbdc.com. Click that little green Get Started button, and you can always follow us on social media, no matter what. So thanks for joining us today, and I'm going to throw it back over to Victor to start today's presentation.
Thank you, Sharon. Yes, oftentimes when we have our first intake with you, we'll suggest that you work with the Small Business Development Center in conjunction with us, or maybe just after a conversation with you, we'll say, we'd love to work with you, but you need to work with them first. And then after maybe working with them for a year, then come back to us and we can kind of take you to the next level. So take advantage of all the services they have to offer. So this is what we're going to be talking about today. I mentioned earlier that when a lot of people think about marketing, they think it's just selling, but there's a lot more to marketing, and within the field of marketing, it's referred to as the 5 Ps of marketing. This is what we're going to be talking about. And it's also called the marketing mix. The marketing mix is product, price, promotion, place, and people. And you can see on this chart here on the right what it is, but I'm going to go through each one of these in detail, and then some other things that you should be aware of as well. But I won't spend much time then on that chart. So product. So one thing about with marketing is that you need to then identify a product. And again, the product could be a service, but you have to ask yourself this question: does the government buy what you sell? So oftentimes you may think that the government buys what you sell, but they may not, or the way in which they purchase maybe what you sell is in such small amounts that the way in which they purchase it is going to be a lot different. But first, understand, does the government buy what it is that you sell? Again, what quantities do they typically buy? You may have a product that you sell, but the government may, when they buy it, buy 1,000 units of it and you're accustomed to selling, 10 units at a time or one at a time, etc. Or again, the type of product that you have is that typically that's what you do. You sell one here to that customer, one to that customer, one to the other customer. So more than likely, if the government's going to buy something like that from you, which they might, they're going to use a whole different purchasing process that is different than some of the more common ways when you think of looking for opportunities online for the products or services that you sell. Think about, is your product a commodity? Is it commonly available? One of the things for commodity type items as well is that what you're starting to see in the marketplace is that for products that are commodity, the government is actually using a process that they've copied from the private sector and using what it's called a reverse auction. Basically, it's all driven by price. So that's something to kind of understand. Is your product or service new? If it's totally brand new, you're not going to see the government looking to purchase your product because they've never heard of it. So then what I tell people is you're going to need to evangelize the product or service that you have. You're going to need to go out, network, go to conferences, trade shows, etc., to let people know that you do have this new product that they may have a great interest in, but they're not going to know about it unless you tell them about it. Understand how they buy the product or service that you sell. So again, I just mentioned that they may buy a product just because of the quantities. They buy something that it's so small, or the need is they need it tomorrow. They may just, find you on the internet and then call you, get 3 quotes, and then buy it from the lowest price. They may buy it because they need it tomorrow, those types of things. They again then might buy it in very large quantities that may be something that you can't provide. So those are some of the things you need to think about when you're identifying the product or service you want to sell to the government. Do you know who your competitors are? So it's really important that you know who your competitors are. You really clearly understand your product so that you can differentiate your product than what your competitors have. What does it make your product unique from someone else's? Again, your product could be that it is a commodity, so it's all going to be price driven, but know who your competitors are. By knowing who your competitors are and the products that they sell, you can maybe identify through various tools that are open to you online of who they're selling to in the government so that you can approach them as well. This last one is really important, is where are you in the supply chain? So one of the things is that oftentimes you sell a product or service, but you will never sell directly to the government. A good example might be that you manufacture parts that maybe go into a tank or an airplane that the government purchases. So the government's not going to buy those from you. They're going to basically buy that finished product from the manufacturer of the tank or the airplane that you supplied. Same thing is like services. You may be a specialty contractor. Say you're a concrete contractor. It'll be rare that you'll find that the government is going to buy just concrete services from you. They're going to hire a general contractor who in turn is going to hire the concrete contractor, electrical contractor, the plumbing contractor, HVAC contractor, etc. So understand, where you are in the supply chain. We can talk to you about that so that we can say, you've got a great company, but your success in the government marketplace is you're not going to sell to the government, but what you want to do is sell to those companies that are successfully selling to the government. And we can show you ways so you can identify who those companies are, so then you can start promoting your services or products to those companies. So price. So price is really important. And like I mentioned earlier, know who your competitors are, know their products, but then know what your competitors' prices are. Sometimes the price is that we see that people want to know, can I see somebody else's pricing on a contract or something like that? You can find information on, say, a contract that was issued by a government agency, but it'll just give the total price. It won't give you unit prices. But try to use your market intelligence to figure out what your competitors' prices are. Oftentimes, if you look at a contract, and then if you can look at the solicitation that led to that contract, you can then see in the solicitation that, okay, the government wanted these products. This was the quantity they wanted. You see what the total price is. That'll give you an idea of what the unit cost was. So then clearly understand this next bullet point: is your price competitive? So again, that's why it's really important that a lot of what we're going to be talking here today is doing some market research. So is your price competitive? And a lot of times you're not going to find out till you start submitting offers. In my kind of introductory remarks there about what we do and debriefs, oftentimes if you don't win an opportunity, you could ask them, what were the reasons? And they may say, hey, your price was too high, and so then you can kind of go back and figure out, why was your price higher than somebody else's? So make sure that that's something. Escalation clause. This we added to this presentation, escalation clause during COVID, because we saw such an increase in prices of all kinds of goods. And unfortunately, what happened to a lot of people, they signed fixed price contracts that when they signed the contract and the agreed upon price, they were basing their price on the prices that they would have to pay for, products or services that then during the duration of the contract increased. So make sure if you submitted an offer that you include an escalation clause in it, so that way you're protected should prices change on you. It actually was something that a lot of contracting officers weren't even accustomed to seeing or having in their contracts because of the fact that the economy had been so stable for so many years. Per price, here's some phrases that are important to know. Request for quote. When you're talking about a request for quote, and these are basically like terms that are used of how they want you to provide a pricing. But with request for quote is, they're asking you, give us a price. And basically the decision on who is awarded the contract is going to be basically determined by who's got the lowest price. The next one, request for proposal, is different in the sense that typically a request for proposal, and you see it more for services or for purchasing a product that has a lot of services that are tied to it, but the government is looking for how are you going to provide a solution to meet the need that they have. And so your solution, your process, your team is oftentimes more important than the price. The price has to be reasonable. It's within a range, but it's not the determining factor. I mean, again, the experience, the process that you've outlined in your proposal of how you're going to accomplish something is going to be more important than the price. Now, you heard me mention, like with request for quote, that everything is driven by price, but remember this term here where it says lowest price technically acceptable. So you may have a price that's lower than everybody else, but it might be so low that the contracting team says there's no way that this company can provide this product or this service to us at such a low price. They maybe have forgotten something in the proposal, and that's going to create a mess down the line as they come back to us to ask for more money because they missed something, etc. Or again, if it's an RFP, yeah, maybe your price was low, but the solution you provide wasn't technically acceptable. And this last one is discount. So you'll see in the forms that you fill out when you submit either an RFQ or respond to an RFP, whether you offer any discounts or not. Oftentimes, you don't have to, but a lot of people will do. So 2%, within 2% discount, 10, net 30, that's a typical discount, but think about whether you want to offer discounts or not and what discounts that you would use. So then promotion. So when most people think about marketing, this is what they're thinking about is, okay, this is what I need to do is, just sell. So you heard me mention earlier capability statement. So a capability statement, especially in the federal marketplace, is really important. And what a capability statement is it's a one-page, you call it a flyer, line card, but it's a one-page statement that basically has like an elevator speech of what your company does, has basic information about your company, whether you're like contact information, whether you're registered in federal government SAM.gov system or the state of California's eProcure system, whether you have any certifications such as veteran or woman-owned or 8A, that kind of information. And then there's a section where you'll put in basically, what it is that your company does, and then another section that shows your past performance. But it's oftentimes it's something that when you want to introduce your company to somebody else, it's a great way to just hand them that. It shows professionalism, and it shows that you understand that this is a document that is used in the government marketplace. In some cases, you'll see some notices in the federal space for what I call sources sought notices, and they'll actually ask you to provide a capability statement. In the sources sought notice, what the government buyers are trying to do is make a determination of whether they should set aside a contracting opportunity for a specific socioeconomic group, such as a woman-owned or veteran-owned. And the capability statement just helps to, for them to easily look at your company and get a sense of your experience and those types of things. Ideally, what you want the capability statement to do is to generate enough interest in your business so that it drives them to your website. So with collateral materials, if you have a good capability statement, you may not, and depending on what kind of industry you're in, you may not need like fancy brochures or things like that. But, those are things that depending on your type of business, you may want to have done. And again, if you have them, other collateral materials are things that I think are essential is business cards. If you're going to an event, you want to have your business card, you want to show up with your business card, and you want to show up with your capability statement. Website. I've seen too many companies that want to sell to the government, but they don't have a website. And I do know that there are companies that have been successful at that, but they're relatively very small, and they're not really growing company. Nowadays, you can get a website for literally a few $100. There's some templates, and you can get a pretty good professional looking website that, like I mentioned earlier, you want someone to get your capability statement that drives them to your website. I also mentioned earlier when we talked about product that oftentimes for small purchases, that's how the government buyer is going to find you. They're going to do an internet search, find your company, contact you so that you can quote on a small purchase, something that maybe is like a $10,000 purchase or less. So make sure you have a website. Per that, I strongly suggest that you get a website and then you get an email that mirrors that website. So instead of johndoe@gmail.com, it says johndoe@abccompany.com, which is the web address of your company. It again projects a much more professional image of your company. Events. So events are really important. I mentioned earlier when we talked about product that if you have a brand new product or service, nobody's heard about it, well, then you need to get out and you need to go to events and display your product, talk to people about it, again, evangelize it. Again, if you go to events, you want to show up with business cards, capability statements. You want to be dressed professionally or appropriately. Professionally doesn't necessarily mean, showing up in a suit and tie, because then you could look overdressed, but, looking, professional. And then have a sales strategy. One of the things that I suggest that people do is that you develop a sales plan, a marketing plan specifically for the government. You may have a marketing plan for your company right now, and it may or may not include the government. But if it doesn't include the government, you want to ideally do that. Place. So place is another of the 5 P's of marketing, because it's important. Is like, where is the product or service going to be delivered? I'm guessing that for most of the people in this webinar, the place is you can service the state of California very well, or maybe 100-mile radius from where you're at, but you need to understand how large of a market can you serve. The product that you sell, or even the service that you sell, you could be able to maybe do that anywhere. But again, of course, you have to figure out the cost of shipping and those types of things, etc. Understand the costs associated with the place of performance. So again, there may be an opportunity that's perfect for your company, but happens to be in another state. And so I don't want to discourage people from not submitting a proposal or an offer on something like that, but make sure you clearly understand all the costs that are going to be associated with performing in another state. It might be that rather than sending in, say, your entire team to another state, maybe you send just 1 or 2 project managers and they work with some subcontractors to do the work in a different location. Now with so many people working virtually and things like that, it could be that you could be California based, but you can be just as effective as selling to a company in say Virginia as somebody based in that state. So keep that in mind. One thing too with places is that especially if you're selling products, is that how much is it going to cost to deliver that product? You may be able to sell a product and offer a really competitive price at your warehouse, but once you have to ship it across the country, then all of a sudden that really affects the price. So make sure that that's something that you really take a look at. Your place can actually be a kind of a competitive advantage if where you're located, you're right next to, say, a military base or something like that. Then it could give you advantage over somebody else that would have to then bring somebody in from out of town, etc. Also, with place, I'll mention that a lot of local governments in the state of California have what are called local preference programs, so that if you're submitting an offer to a local government and you're competing with companies that are from outside that local jurisdiction, they'll oftentimes give you a 5% preference, meaning that if a company outside of the local market offers a price that's lower than yours, but if you're within 5% of their price, they're going to award that contract to you. So keep that in mind. Can I outsource some of what I would normally do? That's kind of what I was saying, is maybe that you're really good at what you do, but there's an opportunity in Atlanta. It could be that, you can manage it from the Central Valley, or just send one person over there versus a entire team. You can outsource some of what you normally do. So people, for the longest time, you saw in the marketing field, basically they referred to it as the 4 P's of marketing: product, place, price, and promotion. But then recently they've added people, and I think it's really important that they did too, is do you have the right leader? So with that, it's, if you want to get into government contracting, it's going to take some time before you probably land your first contract. And so you need someone who's the right leader, who is, basically saying, this is something we're going to do, we're going to commit to it. We're going to learn as we go along. We're going to work with Apex Accelerator, the SBDC, but we'll get there. But the leader has to be behind it. They have to be committed to it. They can't just say to somebody who's a regular salesperson, oh, all of a sudden now you're doing government contracting. And then after, a month of there's no successes, they say, well, that didn't work. Let's just abandon it. You got to be committed to it. You need a leader to be committed to that, to lead the team. So with that, do you have the right team? So again, the leader kind of needs to look at who he has or she has and be able to assign somebody to do certain things. If you're a small company, you may wear all these hats here. You may be the leader, you may be the team, you may be the salesperson. That's okay. But make sure you have the right people that on board. Do you have the right salesperson? With that is that I have seen too often where the owner feels that they started the company, they need to be the spokesperson, but oftentimes they are not the best person to be the salesperson. They just don't have those soft skills like somebody else may have. So they might be better off hiring a salesperson that has knowledge about their industry to go out and develop leads and to, meet with potential customers and close deals, etc., versus them trying to do that. I've seen too many business owners kind of get caught up in selling sort of the technology, but not sort of the benefits of how it would help out the customer, etc. They kind of get in the weeds with that. So make sure you have the right salesperson. And then do you have the resources for above? So one of the things with this is that again, you need to commit resources. You're going to have to understand that as you go through this process, you may not find success right away. So that you're going to be having to pay, say a salesperson or a team leader for, several months, maybe half a year before they generate that first sale that then will lead to more. But, you have to have, and, part of what we're talking about here, and I'll talk more about it, is you'll be having to be paying somebody, be doing some research on, where are the opportunities, those types of things. And so you have to be willing to spend money to make money. So keep that in mind. And then you have to think about, should you bring in some outside help? So again, this may be something where, you've got a team, they're really well, but maybe say salesperson maybe the salesperson that you have is really good with your commercial clients, but they have no experience in the government marketplace. So it might help to bring in somebody who can bring in that kind of experience and expertise. So now I'm just going to go over some basic steps in this whole marketing thing. You went through the 4 Ps, but and I briefly just mentioned, market research is really important in the government marketplace. And that's something too that, we can work with you and show you where you need to go and how to understand the information that you're finding online, those types of things. Talk a little bit about NAICS codes, registrations and some of the major ones and why they're important. Talk a little bit about socioeconomic statuses. Those are the set-asides, and then business development. So with market research, I mentioned way in the beginning about product, who buys what I sell. So in the federal government, these 3 websites, sam.gov, usaspending.gov, and fpds.gov, is where you can go and find information. In sam.gov, you can find the current contracting opportunities. You can go in, set up searches, and find who's buying what it is that you sell. And again, with all these websites, these are things that we can kind of help you navigate. They're not user-friendly to go in them and kind of pull the information that you want out of them. But this is where they're at. State of California is Cal. If you want to sell to the state, it's caleprocure.ca.gov. So it's same thing. You can go there and look at past purchases. You can look at current contracting opportunities, etc. And then local, you're just going to go to your county, city, town, or district. District is like a school district, water district. Those are government entities. So you go to their websites and you can find opportunities. Some of the local cities, towns, and stuff, they'll actually use a third party where their contracting opportunities are posted. Most of them are free, but some of them have a small annual subscription for you to see those. So it's up to you, a business decision of whether you want to pay the fee to see what those opportunities are at the local level. So NAICS codes. NAICS codes that stands for North American Industrial Classification System. You can find these codes at this web address. They're managed by the Census Department of the government, but that's where you can go and look up all the codes. Basically, if you go to this website, you type in your type of work that you do, and then it tells you what the code is, or it may tell you that they can't find anything there. If you have challenges with it, let us know, and then we can maybe help you get to what it is that you're looking for. Depending on who you're wanting to sell to, you need to enter a NAICS code, provide them a NAICS code when you're doing some of the registrations. Some other government entities like the state of California uses what's called the UNSPSC code. So those are just some of the nuances, but the NAICS code is the big one that you see definitely the most widely used. And again, you can use it for searching opportunities. So when you're in sam.gov, you know what the code is that applies to your business. You can use that as a filter and pull up any opportunities that match that code. And then the code is important too, because the codes are used to classify small business size standards. A lot of opportunities that the federal government have been set aside specifically for small businesses. So you need to understand whether your business qualifies as being small. And there's a table that the SBA has that they list all the NAICS codes, and then next to it, they tell you whether or not, what the, I don't know what the term is, what the criteria is to be considered small. Basically, it's either the number of employees or the annual sales revenues is what they use depending on the industry to determine whether you're small or not. So we're at registrations. So I mentioned with the NAICS codes that, they're used oftentimes to register in these systems, but, you want to register with various systems so that the government can find you. And oftentimes it's not only that they can find you, is that it's a requirement for them to give you a contract. And that can vary somewhat. And I don't want to get in the weeds with that right now, but if you want to sell to the federal government, you're registered in what's called SAM.gov. It's technically the System for Reward Management. If you're not already registered in SAM.gov, I highly suggest that don't try it on your own. Register with us. We will walk you through it because they have made some changes to the registration process that is confusing, and it's creating a lot of problems for literally hundreds of thousands of companies across the US. So again, if you want to register, contact us. We'll set up a Zoom meeting and we can see the screens and we can kind of walk you through it so you don't make any mistakes. It's easy to make some mistakes. With state of California, again, you wanna register in their e-procure system. That's where, once you register with them, you can sell to the state. And then also when you set up a registration in e-procure, it'll actually then email you opportunities that match the profile that you submitted in their system. So it's nice. And then locally, again, any city, county, town, etc., get in their vendor databases, because that's the first place they're going to look when they want to make a purchase is within their own database. So do that. And it's important too, especially at this local stuff, is that micro purchases, that's why it's bullet pointed here, typically, and it varies from whichever government agency it might be, but say micro purchases like $10,000 or less. So if they're going to make a micro purchase, they're just going to look probably first in their own database of who's in there, contact them, give us a quote. Again, they're going to pick a company and then pay with a credit card. If it's a micro purchase, you'll never see that opportunity posted anywhere. I know there's misperception out there that with micro purchases, there's some magic place you can go to and find those, but they're not. When you're in, if it's a larger opportunity, then by statute, local governments, the state or federal, they need to post those publicly, but those are for larger purchases. But again, a micro purchase, depending on your business, could still be a significant amount of money. So be aware of that. So the socioeconomic set aside. So I kind of touched upon these earlier. In the federal marketplace, as well as, I guess, and it's a little bit different, but they're referred to as set aside, meaning that if a contracting opportunity is set aside for one of these socioeconomic groups, then only members of those socioeconomic groups can submit offers on those opportunities. The most common one is small business. With small business, you just when you're small business at the federal level, you just basically, when you're registering in SAM.gov, say, I'm a small business, and they take your word for it. With the state of California, you have to actually certify your company as a small business in order to submit an offer for something that's been set aside for a small business. In the federal marketplace, you'll see that they'll set aside contract opportunities for woman-owned businesses, minority-owned businesses, service-disabled veteran-owned businesses. The minority one is kind of an odd one, but I don't want to get in the weeds on that because I do a whole presentation on these certifications. But if as an example, though, you are a woman-owned small business or a veteran-owned business, and you see that an opportunity has been set aside for a woman or a veteran-owned business, it's important to know that even though your business is 100% woman-owned, if you're not certified as a woman-owned business and that contracting opportunity is set aside for a woman-owned business, your offer won't even be reviewed. They'll check to see whether you're certified. If you're not certified, they won't even look at your offer. So keep that in mind. With the state of California, they do certify small businesses and they certify disabled veteran business enterprise, what the term that they use. But it's really important, this last bullet point here that's separate from these, it says, always remember that the value wins contracts, not your socioeconomic status. We see too often that people start a business and the first thing they do is start going out and collecting all these certifications, thinking that it's really going to help their business. But the most important factor that contracting officers look at is past experience of you doing what it is that they want to purchase. So if you don't have a lot of work experience, you can't show them that you've sold this product or service to other customers in the past. You can have all the certifications you want, but it's going to be really hard to convince someone to give you a contract. So, go out, earn some business, and then you icing on the cake. What you do is you submit somebody an offer, or you're talking to somebody at a trade show, etc. They're going to ask you, well, tell me about your business. You want to tell them basically your value proposition, your elevator pitch, that then at the end you say, oh, and by the way, if it's important to you, I happen to be a service disabled veteran-owned business. Don't start the conversation by saying I'm a service disabled veteran-owned business. That'll just turn off a lot of people. So just we're getting kind of close here. Business development. So again, when we talk about marketing, a lot of people are kind of thinking about just the selling part of it, but make sure that you understand people that you're talking to. There's buyers, and then there's end users, and there's other people that you will encounter too. But remember, with buyers and end users, that they can really be hard to access. Oftentimes, go to an event and buyers and end users won't be there. There'll be people there at that event who their job is to go to events and tell small businesses that, we're here, we want to learn about your business, we want to do business with you, but they're not actually the buyer or end user of your product. So oftentimes, you may be lucky enough to meet some of these people. A lot of times where you can meet somebody like that is there might be a certain opportunity where there's a site visit, and then that's where you might encounter then either the end users, the buyers, but typically they're hard to access. And one thing I'll say too is that if you identify some and you start calling and emailing and stuff, more than unsolicited, more than unlikely, they're not going to respond. They're busy people and they're not going to do it. And it's nothing personal against you. It's just the way it is. Again, understand the difference between RFI. This is request for information or a sources sought notice, request for quotation, request for proposal. Make sure that when you review these documents and they come through, when you look at them, the people who put them together, oftentimes they're doing them in a hurry. And as the expert in your field, may look at it and say, well, I can't answer these questions, or I can't give them a price on this because I need more information. So typically what you'll see is that in the document, they'll say, if you have questions, this is who you send them to, and we'll accept questions up to this date. So that's your opportunity to submit questions. they're going to ask you to email them the questions rather than a phone call, because then what they'll do is they'll compile all the questions. They'll post the questions so that everybody who is interested in the opportunity will have access to all the questions, all the responses, and all be on a even playing field. Following opportunities, if you're in SAM.gov and you see an opportunity with a federal agency, you want to follow that. We can show you how to do that, but it's really important that you follow it, because it's really common that once a solicitation is posted, there'll be amendments, modifications to it, and that you need to then, by following it, acknowledge every amendment, modification, and that means basically printing it out and then signing it and then submitting it with your offer. So if you follow it, you'll receive an email basically saying there's been a new amendment to this opportunity. So then you know to go there and look it up and see what it's all about. Oftentimes it might be something as simple as, say, they might be they've changed the date of when the offers are due and those types of things. And then site visits. If there's a site visit, strongly encourage you to attend. It might be a way for you to ask a question one-on-one to a buyer or an end user, show your professionalism, those types of things. It's an opportunity for you to ask a question to, say, a buyer or end user that then won't be shared with all the other competitors. So take advantage. And in some cases, the site visits are mandatory. So if it's mandatory and you don't attend the site visit, don't even bother submitting an offer. One thing about it being mandatory is that you can send anybody that goes in and signs up under your company's name then for it to be acceptable. So it doesn't have to be you as the owner or anything like that. So just kind of keep that in mind. With events, again, attend events, be out there to any kind of outreach events. They call them industry days, conferences, trade shows, local association events where you can network and meet other players. Oftentimes, one of the best ways to get into government contracting is you being a subcontractor to someone else that's already doing business with the government. And oftentimes that's a way for you to meet people in your industry that you can subcontract to, is by just being visible, attending different events, those types of things. And then again, identify the low-hanging fruit. So, look for the smaller opportunities. One of the things, especially if you're relatively new business, is that, again, the most important thing that contracting officers or evaluation teams will look at is your experience providing that same product or service to other customers. So again, doesn't matter if the other customers are from the private sector. It's just that the product or services that you provided to the private sector is similar to the product or service that you would provide to the government, but they want to see that you've done this kind of work before. That's really important. So then a little more here on business development is, understanding who you're talking to. So there's influence versus authority. I mentioned earlier, like if you go to a lot of these events, they'll have people there that are called like small business specialists. And these are just outreach people that go there and said, hey, we, want to do business with small businesses. One thing I'll say is that, you want to be nice to everybody, be professional. You want to be able to hand your capability statement to all these people. But that's typically the first person you're going to encounter is some type of small business specialist. So you want to kind of impress them. So with a goal of they might in turn introduce you to some of these other people that I'll talk about. Then you have end users. So typically the end user will have a need, but they're not the actual ones who actually buy the product or services. It's actually the contracting officer in the team there. Again, if you can have an opportunity to meet an end user, Tell them about your product or service, show your professionalism. They can help maybe influence the process. Oftentimes the end user is going to be part of the evaluation team when the offers come in. When you look at solicitations, you'll see that typically they'll have either a contracting officer's representative or a contracting officer. So each one has different levels of authority. It's only the contracting officer that actually has the authority to purchase. But oftentimes, the contracting officer will work through the contracting officer representative with you in order to manage the contract. And understand that contracting officers just have different levels of purchasing power. They have what I call warrants, and they assign dollar values to warrants. So one contracting officer might have a warrant that goes up to 50,000. Another one might have one for 250,000. Another one might have, $2 million, but they have different levels of purchasing power. But again, this last one's really important. Just promote your business in a nice professional way to all influencers. All these people are influencers in the process, but promote your business to them. Develop a marketing package. So ideally, develop a marketing plan specific for the government. So part of the things you're going to have there, you're going to have a capability statement. You're going to have a nice website. Again, depending on the type of business, you'll have maybe some additional collateral materials beyond a capability statement. Maybe you're a manufacturer of products and things like that. So you want to have nice collateral material for each different model of product that you manufacture. This one is really important, this past performance documentation. One of the things when you're submitting offers, they'll ask you in the notice, the response that you need to submit, give us 3 references that we can contact about your past performance. So they're going to want to know the name of the company or the project, the name of a person, their email, phone number. So make sure you have that ready to go. Make sure that if you're using anybody as a reference, that they know that you're using them as a reference. You don't want them to be surprised. And then identify your competitive advantage. So when I do a presentation on capability statements, I talk about how you do that, but think about that. Sit down with your team and identify really what it is that are our differentiators. What is the competitive advantage that we have over our customers? And then elevator speech, branding, messaging. This is something that you want to do so that when anybody from your company is asked, hey, what does your company do? They all say the same thing. So it goes to branding, messaging. So quick takeaways, then I'll jump into some questions anybody might have. Is I heard me mention it before, owner's not always the best salesperson. So the owner might be technically really smart and all that jazz, but might be more of an introvert. So keep that in mind. Don't take it personally. Just know that, you can be successful of, bringing in somebody else. Again, avoiding too much technical speak, especially when you're talking to, like I mentioned, small business specialists, stuff like that. These people are just kind of generalists and they're not going to understand your technology, those types of things. So save that for someone else that understands what you're talking about. Make sure that you can share how you delivered value to another customer. So it goes back to, knowing who your references are and being able to communicate how you save them money, how you save them time, those types of things. Remember that all of this is relationship building. So network. So not only with potential customers, but again, people in the industry, because again, a friendly competitor of yours might be able to say, hey, I used to do work with this company, this agency, but I kind of outgrew them, but that may be a good opportunity. Here's the name of somebody you can contact. So think about that. Always be professional. And then utilize outreach personnel. They have different titles, small business representative, small business liaison, but use those people. These are the ones, again, that you'll encounter at various events. Last one, again, just continue to educate yourself. So work with us, let us kind of teach you, dive down deeper in some of the steps and things like that. And again, if you might be the business owner, so it could be that, hey, you're going to assign somebody to this, so get them working with us, but continue to educate yourself on all the different opportunities and the best way to approach them. This one, be internet savvy. That's all about not all the government agencies use the same terminology or post their information the same way. So you need to know how to sometimes kind of go around and search through websites to find the information that you're looking for. Subcontracting can be a great way for you to start. So oftentimes the prime can kind of, just by you, the prime then has flow down responsibilities. So some of the documentation that you need to fill out as a sub to the prime, then the prime gives to the government customer, is something that you can start familiarizing yourself with, etc. So, but that's actually a great way to start. And again, depending on where you're at in the supply chain, you know, you'll always be a subcontractor, but you can be making a ton of money being a subcontractor on government projects and never be a prime. This watch for scams. We've added this just because once you start registering some of these systems, it's public information, and there are companies out there that'll basically say, we can help you register in SAM, or we've got directories that all the federal buyers use, or we've created a website for you in a format that all the federal buyers want to see. Basically, they'll take you for any amount of money they possibly can, from a few hundred to several $1,000s, and they don't deliver on any of their promises. But be aware that you'll see them. We always tell people, if you get an email like that from somebody, you're not sure if it's legit or not, just send it to us and we'll tell you whether it's legit. A lot of them are really sophisticated. They use logos and they've got fancy websites that really make you think, oh, these guys are legit, but they're not. And this last one is just be patient. You know, it's a marathon, not a sprint. Again, there's kind of a learning curve, but once you kind of get it, then you'll find the success that you seek. So with that, capability statements, you heard me mention this many times. So July 12th, we'll be doing a presentation on capability statements. Yeah, I'll really dive deep into them, show you some examples and talk more about the sections of them, etc. So with that, I'll take any questions if anybody has. You can drop them in the chat or the Q&A, either one. I'll be able to see them. And as I'm waiting for you to feverishly type, again, you'll receive a copy of this presentation and a link to the recording. Nita's raised her hand, but Nita, I don't know how to unmute you or anything like that. So if you have a question, please type it in the chat or the Q&A. Okay. Oh, the chat's disabled, Petra said. Wow, that's weird. Well, so Petra said the chat was disabled, so I apologize for that. But I did see that Petra was able to submit a question or that comment through the Q&A. So if you do have a question, please submit it through the Q&A. Why is that disabled? Huh. Okay. I apologize. I'll have to figure that out. Whoops. One thing that I'll just mention here too is that there's our email address, phone number. if you have questions, just reach out to us and then we can answer them one-on-one with you and or go over any of this that I've gone through with you, kind of one-on-one. So let's see. Yeah, like I said, just go ahead and reach out to us if you have questions, because again, a question might be something that might take a little bit longer for me to go through. Somebody says, hello, as discussed, I was contacted by this group issuing very aggressive sales taxes. Govbidsguarantee.com. Has anyone been successful with this group or unfortunately had a bad experience with them? I would imagine, Tyson, that is the typical, I guess the reaction when you deal with these people is that they are very aggressive. And oftentimes, I mean, I had a client that had signed up, you know, unknown to me with one of them. And when it came time to renew a year later, they were very aggressive to the point where, you know, we had to be super aggressive back to say, stop calling, stop emailing, you know, we don't want your service anymore. Nothing that you promised was ever delivered, etc. So, you know, they did create this funky little website, but it was useless. Elizabeth says, should we create a landing page for government? What should we be including on that landing page? That's not a bad idea. You know, if you had like a tab on a website that said, you know, that said government or something like that, you might want to list kind of the product offerings that you have for the government, maybe some customers, those types of things. So ideally, you know, when you think about it, and I'm no web expert, but they basically say that when people go to a website, within 3 clicks, they want to find the information that they're looking for. So if it's a government people, if you have a page like that, then they can get to that page very quickly by you having a tab like that. And oftentimes something like that, one thing I'm going to be talking with someone here, I don't know, next couple of days, but oftentimes when you do a capability statement, the content and the information you have in the capability statement can be the content that you would put on a kind of a basic website. So you can kind of kill 2 birds with 1 stone. Elizabeth says, is there a place to locate government trade show events? There is a website. I think it's called govevents.com. It is seems like it's more technology focused. So knowing the industry that Elizabeth company is in, you know, it might just be trade show events that are more geared towards her industry. They're in the ag industry, so you know, I would think that maybe if you went to USDA their website to see if they're participating in any kind of industry events, those types of things, that'd be a good way to do it. You can look at Gov events. I do know that they have all kinds of events, but when I've looked at it, it seemed more technology focused. But they list literally hundreds of events that are happening all over across the country. Yeah, I'm looking at this. Yeah, Liz, I'll send you a link for some ideas. Uh, okay. See here. Yeah. Okay, I think those are all the questions. Liz, I'll send you some information. So we're past the hour, so I'm gonna let you folks go. So again, if you have further questions, just reach out to either your already assigned Apex counselor or this phone number here, this email address, and we'll get the information so we can follow up with you. So with that, thank you very much, and then we'll see you next time. I wonder.